Okay, we are ready to go.
All right, I'd like to call this regular board meeting, the Melbourne School District 24 to order. Who we call the roll?
Ms. Voss? Mr. Coleman?
Here.
Mr. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Lawrenson?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Pederini?
Here.
Ms. Roberts? Here.
Good. All right, stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So, did not see any public comments coming, unless anything trickled in.
Nope, I did not see any public comments.
Good. Before we move on to addition and non-action items, I just want to say I'm running the meeting because Brennan's participating remotely, not feeling well. Brennan, we wish you all the best. Hope you're back with us soon. I do not have any addition and non-action items, but I will open it up to the rest of the board if anybody has anything. Jason? Good?
Nope.
All right, moving on to item 6, action items. First reading of board policies as written in the agenda. Sean, anybody have any?
No comments at this point. I'll be going through each of these. There have been many laws passed, about 100 laws passed in the calendar year, and so many of them have impact. I believe 88 of the policies are impacted, so I'll be going through each of these to see if there's anything I note or material change.
Okay. All right. You say that there's no vote for item B?
No, for the first reading.
For the first reading. Okay. Got it. So that was just for information discussion. All right. All right, so item A, approve the final draft calendar for the 2022-2023 school year. We all have a copy in front of us. Anybody has any discussion, questions, concerns on this?
Do we have start times? What are the start? I don't seem to have questions about the dates, but more the start times.
No, we don't. We usually don't announce any start times unless there's a change, and that would be in August that we would do that.
Okay.
Unless we know sooner, but
Okay.
no, at this point we don't anticipate any changes in start times.
Okay.
If we do, we'll certainly talk about that.
Okay.
Is there anything new on here? I mean, this is pretty standard.
Yeah.
Pretty standard. We're starting a week later next year than this year. Winter break is a little bit different. Getting closer to the Christmas holiday, so things shift around a little bit. But we generally match what the high schools are doing in the area, so it's important to get the winter break, spring break times together. They're a little bit split in the county this year, which was a little bit frustrating for some parents who might work in a different district or have kids in a different district. It got a little bit wonky, but that happens once in a while, and then next year they should align pretty closely again, at least with the 3 high schools that we feed into.
Okay, anything else? No? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve item A, item 6A.
So moved.
Peter, second. Cassie, thank you. Good, vote right.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrenson?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts? Yes. The motion passed.
Thank you, Veronica. All right, moving down to item 6B, approve the intergovernmental is not a word, I don't think, agreement with Antioch 34 to share a speech therapy services. Jason, if you could give a little context on this?
Yep, so the last 2 years, or just last year and this year, we've shared.
2 years prior.
2 years prior to this year, we've shared speech services with Antioch School District. It's very difficult, as you might know, to find speech therapists, and so we have been able to hire somebody, and much less part-time. So we hired somebody, we need them 2 days a week, Antioch uses them the other 3 days a week. And so we have a shared services agreement with Antioch to try and get that service provided for our kids, and it's worked out quite well.
And the only difference between this agreement and the prior agreement is that instead of having a fixed dollar amount per hour for the services that are provided to Antioch, we have it as their salary and benefits plus $1 an hour. Because if we'd left the agreement the way it was, we would have lost money this year.
So they're on Antioch's payroll and we.
No, they're on our payroll.
All right, vice versa.
Right.
So they're paying us the actual cost of the person and their benefits plus $1 an hour
Okay.
for the hours that they use that person.
What school is 34 in? Is that Oakland?
It's
I don't know
Antioch
what-
Elementary. I don't know what
She could
school
be-
she's at.
Okay, so there's multiple schools.
She's working for District 34, the other half, so I don't know what schools she's at, but
Okay.
She's here at the elementary building, I believe,
Yep.
at this building. Is that correct, Adam?
All right, thank you, Jason. Any questions, comments, concerns about item 6D? In case, I will entertain a motion to approve the IGA, Antioch 34.
So moved.
Thank you, John.
A second?
Thank you, Peter. Roll call, please.
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
yes,
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
The motion passed.
Thank you. Moving on to action item 6C, bill approval and payment authorization for school board travel. Didn't we just adopt this?
Each time there's payments, you have to do it again.
Okay, so new resolution each time?
it's not a resolution, you're just approving the payment.
Okay,
Yep. Incurred expenses.
gotcha. I have no further questions. Anybody have any comments, concerns? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the payment authorization of the school board travel.
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
yes,
The motion passed.
Okay, thank you. Number 6D, resolution to adopt the teacher's retirement system, State of Illinois Supplemental Savings Loan.
So Illinois made a law this year, or changed something in TRS, however that works, where we are required to offer a supplemental savings plan outside of regular TRS to our teachers. And so in order to do that, we are required to have this resolution on the books. And so our attorneys got us the correct language for us to be able to do this, and protect the district as taking as much responsibility away from the district as possible as a liability for making any recommendations, which we won't do, to tell teachers what to invest their money in, but we have, there's certain limitations to this, and we have to do it, so this is the resolution that's the result. Any additional comments, Dr. Jones?
Well, the resolution's one page, but it also has the entire document of the TRS's agreement, is a part of it, as well as, what's attachment A there? Oh, this is the employer participant agreement that the attorney's still recommending that we wait till closer to the March 1st deadline to sign it, because there's still some concern over the online portion of how the teachers sign up for it. And the earliest that anything could come out of any of our teachers can contribute would be the, like, March 15th payroll. So we'd still have time to do that.
Is there much interest in the program?
I've not had anybody ask me anything about it, and I know TRS has sent out 2 or 3 mailings already. And it will be a good program. It's just one of those that, there's just some concerns as far as the fiduciary responsibility of the district, and how they have it set up. As far as, like us being able to know, like if somebody moved in here from another district, or they're participating somewhere else, because we have to guarantee that they don't go over the annual maximum. And that's a fairly high number. I think it's about $20,000 a year. So I don't think we'll have too many, but we do have a few people that max it out every year. So it is something we want to be aware of and want to understand.
It doesn't look like the district contributes anything.
No, we haven't in the past. That's something that, you know, the district could contribute, but it's not anything that we have in the past. We don't do with the 403Bs. Now, this is a 457, which is slightly different than the 403B. So technically, somebody could contribute the maximum to their 403B and then also contribute the maximum to the 457 and still be within the legal limits.
Thank you both for the explanation there. Anybody have any additional questions or concerns?
Just real quick, with the board approving this and us signing as board president and secretary, that still allows you to delay your signatures until later as suggested.
Yeah, and actually, I got a
by the
copy of
attorney,
the
right.
other one, and the
Okay.
attorney suggested we put February 28th as the date on it, so that's what
Okay.
I have
It's
listed on
down, I just saw the date.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, February 28th,
28th.
Okay.
and then it will be effective March 1st.
All this is saying is that you have to give the option, right, for
Correct.
employees to,
Now, at some
yeah,
point,
people could have gotten these on their own prior, right?
no, until we send in this participation form, they can't sign up online.
Oh, okay, all right, but if they wanted outside,
Well, except they couldn't do a 457 because we don't have one. So this
I
is a
see.
457.
I see, it's
so-
not the 403, okay.
So that's the difference, and, then this resolution also designates the superintendent and business manager to be the one that can continue signing off on documents for the program. And we kind of have that with our 403B, that the business manager is the one that can sign off, and anytime we've made any changes or anything, I've brought it back to the board just so the board's aware of what usually they're changes that we're legally required to do.
All right, any other questions? Entertain a motion? This one?
So moved.
Thank you, John.
Second?
All right, thank you, Vanessa. Roll call, please.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Federini?
Yes,
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes?
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
The motion passed.
All right, thank you, Veronica. All right, moving on to 6E, the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions or anything they would like to take out of the consent agenda as listed? entertain a motion to approve item 6E.
So moved.
Peter,
Mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Vanessa.
Thanks, boss.
All right, we have a roll call, please.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Federini,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts? Yes. Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes?
Mr. Gray?
Yes. Discussion, item 7, we've all seen in Jason's email last Friday, mass litigation is ongoing. There's room for some discussion. Jason, I don't know if you wanna give some more background to this, or?
Yeah, I'll try and be as concise and clear as I can. First, I want to point out, we're not making any decisions tonight. This is for discussion purposes, but I want to make the board aware of what's happening with current litigation in the state of Illinois regarding the mask mandate and regarding quarantine for close contacts. So there's two big pieces that are kind of lumped together in one litigation activity. So, just as a reminder, and I attended a webinar today with our attorneys that were talking about this throughout the state to try and get a little bit more information about it, and get kind of a pulse for what they're recommending school districts to do, and I'll try and be as brief and summarize it as possible, what the implications are, what is actually at play. So, there are parents in 145 school districts who are suing those school districts. It's not necessarily a class action lawsuit. That's one of the points they're going to rule against. But there's 145 groups of parents suing these 145 school districts. Some of them are in our area. For example, District 117 and Woodland are named in it, and I believe Antioch 34 are part of that. So they gathered all of these suits together and combined them into one, and they have chosen to litigate this or to file that complaint in Sangamon County, which is near Springfield or part of Springfield area. And so that judge, I believe it's Judge Grishow, is how you say her name, but she is the one that is going to be ruling on it. She had a hearing last week, and she'll be ruling, she said, possibly as the earliest this Friday, on whether or not to do a temporary restraining order on the district's ability to require masks in school, and the district's ability to exclude students who are close contacts from school. So under the governor's orders, they're simultaneously suing the governor as well. Under the governor's orders, we have a 5-day quarantine requirement that's saying if you are a close contact, if I'm a close contact of someone either on the bus or in my house who has COVID, then I'm not allowed to come to school for 5 days, and school districts are compelled to, at this point, enforce that. At least that's our understanding and our attorney's understanding. This judge or the temporary restraining order could lift that order and say, no, school districts do not have the right to enforce that, and in fact cannot enforce that and should not enforce that. And so if students are close contact, what we would do is recommend that they stay home, but if parents want to send their kids to school, they can. So that's one of the pieces. The other piece is with masks. It's kind of the same thing. Right now, we are requiring masks in order to enter the building and to stay in the building. If this temporary restraining order goes into place, the judge could say, no, you cannot enforce masks in school. You can come into school. It's masks optional is what the district could move toward or must move toward. Now, this again we are not named in this lawsuit, so it doesn't necessarily directly impact us immediately, But those districts who are named in the lawsuit, if the judge rules that way, could the next day they would not be able to enforce a mask mandate, and they would not be able to enforce a quarantine. So that's what's on the table at the moment. A temporary restraining order, again, is temporary, and it would last for 10 days. After 10 days, we don't know what would happen if the judge would in fact issue this temporary restraining order. So in the meantime, there will be an appeal. Both sides have said they will appeal to the next level, to the appellate court, and make a decision. And so that 10 days would probably be masks optional in those school districts, and then after 10 days, depending on what the appellate court says, could go back the other way. So it could be a little topsy-turvy and chaotic for a little bit. What's important to keep in mind here is this is a legal aspect. They're not even arguing the merits of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. That is not part of the equation at this point. Eventually that'll happen at the appellate level. Will it get kicked back down to Sangamon County Court? We don't know, but at this point now it's a lot of technical legal fighting on the basis of the law, not on the basis of the merits of wearing a mask or the basis of the merits of quarantining students for 5 days who have been in close contact. So that makes it a little bit interesting. I think the lawyers are a little more excited about this and interested in this. School district leaders, superintendents are just concerned about this happen. Whatever happens, what are the implications for our school district and what should we do? For example, if we won't become overnight a mask optional district. But at some point, this may have, this is where it gets a little squishy and a little gray. At some point, there will be additional pressure, and there may be some rulings where they would say the governor's orders are no longer valid legally. And so if that happens, then we don't have the governor's mask mandate to back us up. What would the school district do? They may say you have local control, so the 7 of you can decide on that and take a vote and decide, do you want to be mask optional or mask required or not. They may not even allow that. We don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns still. And again, it's not about whether or not masks are valuable or not. It's not about the other mitigation. It's just about these legal requirements, and does the governor have a right to mandate this, and do the school districts have the authority to enforce, basically. It may not be decided for months.
Is it both of those things, Jason, or is it strictly focusing on school districts? It seems like it's simply.
It's the governor mandate.
It's the governor's mandate that's causing this
Yeah.
and the enforcement of it, but the question is the legal matter at hand, whether the governor has the right to enforce a mandate or impose a mandate, or is it strictly focused on whether school districts are bound to impose the mask mandate? It sounds like it's the latter.
Like at school districts, and we're
Yeah,
bound.
like it's focused on school districts.
I think it's
And
both,
whether they
but
have the right.
It is both. The lawsuit is against ISBA for essentially like, oh wait, that's a different lawsuit. But it's against ISBA for enforcing it, and then it's also against Pritzker as a whole because he is the one who issued the
But it's
mandate.
the same lawsuit?
yeah, Pritzker's named in this one and the school.
Okay, good. Good, because that's what it should be. That matter should be settled.
Right, you have to settle
Before-
that first,
Yeah,
one before the other.
yeah, right.
School districts are stuck in the middle. as we
That's
know.
right, that's, okay.
What do we do? We're not health experts, we're not
Mhm.
clinic, we can all read, we can all make our own assumptions. And everybody's gonna have a very strong opinion about what should happen. but in the meantime, we're trying to operate schools as safely as possible and keep our kids healthy and ready to learn, so. And as I said in my notes, that could be, people believe that wearing masks is more detrimental than not wearing masks, even though more children may get sick without masks. And that plays out in our school district with what we see. But is that long-term the best? I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna know that for 5, 10 years, if ever, so. It's very interesting in some ways. For me, personally, very frustrating, so.
And
Doesn't seem like a
are they
good
gonna
time.
expedite it, so we'll know, I mean, you assume that, you say they're gonna appeal, well, that's a whole nother,
It takes 7 days.
okay, so it's gonna be fast tracked.
Yeah.
So, we should have a resolution by the end of this school year then.
Appeals tend to take longer,
Okay.
so I don't know that it will be answered by the end of this school year. Ideally, they'll prioritize it, but appeals courts they take so long.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, based on just the timeline, it doesn't sound like there's gonna be a resolution by June of this year, but,
As it relates for like general appeals timeline, like just to get in your initial brief, you have like 45 days to do it. So, like, if they're waiting a month and a half just to write the first, just to open up the appeal, and then turning around and the response gets another 45 days, and so it can definitely tack some time into it, as far as the appeals goes.
These mandates are tied back to the continually renewed emergency mandate, right? What is that, like every 2 weeks or something he comes on?
30 days.
Yeah.
Every 30 days, so with numbers dropping at the rate that they're dropping, litigation could end before that
Possibly,
lawsuit.
but he's
Yeah.
also refused to give any type of speculation as to whether or not he's going to.
Well, the numbers were low last time. I don't know if you guys remember, but we did go to, maybe not necessarily the school level, but masks were optional, right? For a period of time in the summer. Am I
Yeah.
crazy? We went to tier 5, so.
And we've just had mask mandatory, we went through just recently too. Interesting thing, I do see that, the director of the IDPH and Governor Pritzker are also named as defendants, but the matters of law being addressed just appear to me to be whether the schools can, enforce the mandates imposed by the governor. It doesn't look like the central focus is on whether the governor has a right to impose these mandates. So it seems like this is kind of nipping at the corners, at the edges, rather than just getting to the heart of the matter, whether the governor can impose a mask mandate.
There has to be a precedent for school districts having to abide by governor's orders.
To me, that makes sense, right? That's
Why
what I'm
would it,
saying.
if that's-
This just seems like it's nipping at the edges. It's not
That's the
going to the
legal-
heart of the matter.
Yeah,
Which is,
probably it's gonna
if
be.
there's a governor, imposing a mask mandate, you comply.
I think they're going for the most cost-effective option. I hate to say it like that, but attacking what the people can afford. It's great.
Because that could go on forever. That's like a constitutional matter.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have any resolution on this anytime soon, but in the meantime.
It'll cause a lot of stress, confusion, more disagreements.
Yes,
Way to go, guys.
all right.
So cool. So cool.
So it'll be interesting, and thankfully we're not named in that, because then we would be on a little different.
yeah, but I mean,
level.
assuming they win, assuming the parents
Plaintiff,
suing
yeah.
the schools win.
Yeah.
Obviously, once that comes down, we have to, or we're gonna get turned around and get sued the next day. I mean, because they're gonna have the written opinion, and
Well,
it's gonna
well,
impact. You
Yeah.
don't think so?
No, I'm shaking my head because it's an open question, right?
Yeah.
If it's decided that the school districts don't have a right to enforce a mask mandate, yet it's not determined whether the governor has a right to impose a mask mandate, now you've got legal entities or political entities that are out of balance with each other, right? Yeah, the governor still has a right to impose that, but districts, you can't enforce it. Then who does?
Right, but I mean,
You're saying temporarily.
but if it becomes, if the parents win,
Yeah.
if appellate court says parents are right,
Yeah,
all right,
that's the
the
logic.
next day, someone in our district can turn around and say, here's the opinion, you have to do it or we're gonna sue you.
Logical conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get there anytime soon.
Well, yeah.
Nope.
The actual complaint is 359 pages long. In case you want to download it.
What's that font?
What's that?
I'm just checking.
What's that? Did you say what's that font?
Yeah.
Itty bitty, written in legalese.
Legally, size 8, Times New Roman.
How many times does it say whereas?
Alright, well, it's kind of food for thought right now. I mean,
Yeah, I will keep the board informed of any changes and any recommendations by attorneys. Right now, there's some wait and see. I have not communicated out to our parents, as you probably already know, because it just throws all kinds of more confusion and questions, and they said, unless you're named in the suit, it doesn't, there's no reason at this point. But we will watch it. We'll keep everybody apprised of any developments and any changes and any recommendations by legal.
thank you, Jason. Anybody else? Any final comments on this one before we move on? Alright, with a FOIA request from George Weckbacher. Anything notable discussion on that?
Nope, just have to post anytime there's a FOIA, we have to put it on our agenda.
Is there a reason that he's looking for?
Probably he's in the business of selling
Is that
insurance.
what
and
he's doing? Is he
interested-
selling us insurance?
No, not this time.
No? No.
What is surety bonding in short?
That's,
I believe that's sure, I think it's like the board legal liability, but I'm not
Yeah.
positive.
Okay.
I think that's what he's asking for.
Alright.
so it
We
protects,
provided him with all the policies he requested, but
it protects the board from being sued if you make some financial decision, which you won't.
yeah, we got this
Yeah.
for you like December 22nd or something, which kind of ruined the things I had planned to do on those days I was gonna work. But it is his right to request that information,
There's
so.
Christmas wrapping.
You didn't ask for a holiday extension?
No, that's not an option, but
What do you mean? You put it in writing. You can ask for an extension. on
you can
FOIA.
ask for, I think, a 5-day extension,
Yeah.
5 business days.
If they'll agree to it in writing, whatever.
And
they-
it
whatever.
did take a while for me to get all the policies, and he was very cooperative with allowing us to provide him with the information as soon as we received it, so.
It's good, he's looking out for the school district.
Alright. Alright. Item number 8, future agenda items, audit presentation upcoming, Dr. John,
And that'll be on February 14th at our next meeting, at the county meeting.
mark your calendars. District phone system, any updates on that one?
Yeah, actually, today we got a quote back from, from CDW, we're looking at with, one of the potential providers. With we're going with Antioch and Lake Villa
Yep.
potentially, so, anything shared we can do with them. But we don't know what the quote means yet, you know, there's a lot of technical looking into that.
And there's also some circuits we need to purchase to connect to to 117 as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
And for that, we'll need another intergovernmental agreement.
Yep.
Eventually, someone will send you a FOIA request inquiring about the details.
That's okay.
Alright, Red Apple license agreement?
Yeah, that's just, typically, we do a contract for up to 5 years, so we've typically done, like, their license agreement is 1 year and then 4 renewals. Well, we've done 1 year and 4 renewals, so this will be a new agreement, but it's basically the same language as the last one. And that'll be at the, February board meeting to be for approval.
Okay. How many rooms do they have, or is it?
They have 2.
2 rooms?
And I'll get you some information as far as what kind of revenue we've gotten and those kind of things, so you'll be aware of, what you're agreeing to.
This is a private preschool, right?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions on that? Vote on our next regular board meeting. Alright, semi-annual review of closed session minutes and destruction of audio tapes more than 18 months old.
So we have in your packet, on your table, those are the closed session minutes, that we can choose. The board has to review every 6 months. We have to go through this review process. We have to look at all of our closed session minutes and say yay or nay, they should be opened or they should remain closed. So generally, if there's minutes that have someone's name in them, like personnel, and they were discussed and it has more than just their name, like my name could be in there and say, the board discussed Jason Lynn's evaluation. Okay, you can open that, there's no private information. But if it said the board discussed Jason Lynn's FMLA for his knee surgery, that's private information, that's health information, we can't publicize that. So, or if there's student names in there, we keep those closed as well, if you can kind of tell what was happening, or if there's even no name but enough information that someone who knew the circumstance could identify that person. So look them over. Our notes are generally very general for a reason. We just have to have enough information on there to know what we discussed. Topic wise, this is not verbatim, but look those over. If you have any questions, let me know. I make a recommendation to open or remain closed. In 6 months, we do it all again. So if we miss one and we want to open it, we can do it again on the next round. So, but it's important that these remain confidential. So we ask for them back at the next, actually not this meeting, the next regular meeting, which is February 28th. So we'll ask for them back and we'll shred. So let me know if you have any questions, but that's what you've got there.
Do you still have audio tapes?
Yeah,
There
right there.
So you just delete the
Digital.
recording?
I don't remember us doing this 6 months ago.
Yeah, in July.
We did in July?
I don't,
Okay.
I think so.
I remember the discussion.
The first time we decided to let you into the secret.
I think I was on vacation, that might have been it.
Oh,
That was it.
Alright, so that's good. Anybody have any future agenda items that they would like to add? Alright, take it away, Jason, with the superintendent report.
okay. So if you had a chance to participate in the thought exchange, it was great. I just want to go briefly through the results of that and what we picked up. So what we're trying to get at is, how is Zoom going? We're halfway through the year. What we have now is when students are in quarantine, we allow them to Zoom into a classroom and still participate in that activity. We give teachers at least a full day's warning before we do that so they can prepare. So if we're notified, let's say on Monday, today, that a student tests positive for COVID, we would tell the teacher today they have Tuesday to prepare. Wednesday the student starts Zooming, and then they can Zoom all the way through their quarantine up to 10 days. With the 5-day quarantine, if they're positive today, that's day 0, then we go 5 days, and they start Zooming Wednesday. They could Zoom Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they would Zoom 3 days, and that's it. My question kind of surrounded by, is it worth it? And I asked the questions in 2 different groups. So parent groups commented on parent comments, teachers groups commented on teachers' comments, so that we could see that there's a difference. And there were no real surprises there, but what I was trying to get at is this is a lot of energy for us to do this. As a staff, it's not just the teachers. When someone Zooms, so the nurse is notified that there's a positive case. That nurse has to notify the teacher. The nurse has to contact, of course, calls the parent. The nurse then tells the principal, and then we do contact tracing with everybody on the bus or in the classroom or wherever that student was. And then we have to contact all those kids and parents and do that, and then identify those, and then on and on and on it goes. So every case is quite extensive, and then we have to notify the teachers of the close contacts, and we notify the teachers and whether or not those close contacts are going to stay home, because they can choose to come to school and do test to stay, but if they don't want to do test to stay, they don't have to. It's a lot to manage, especially when you might, first few weeks here after break, where we're getting 30, 40 cases a week. That's a ton. So, is it worth it for us? Is my point. And in summary, I'll go through some of the results. This was a hot topic. 463 participants, that's a lot for a survey of 1,000 parents. Or 2,000 parents, it's still a lot. So there's 463 participants, 416 thoughts, and 7,000 ratings. So in this system, you could provide a thought, you don't have to, or you can just skip over it and go right into ratings, and you give a rating scale on how highly you rate that particular thought. Most of the responses were from the elementary school, which makes sense. That's where most of our families are. And then we have some of the key thoughts. So these are the highest ranked thoughts of all the thoughts, teachers or parents. The top thought was a teacher's thought. It's really hard for kindergartners and kindergarten teachers. We're back to operating more traditional kindergarten format. Adding kids with no Zoom experience into this environment is very, very difficult. That makes complete sense to me. These kids have never done Zoom before, like the other kids who participated a good chunk of the year last year. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to operate the system, computer, the etiquette. It's a lot to teach someone who's been in traditional school, going to school like normal for most of the year, and then all of a sudden they're home and they have to Zoom into a classroom and they don't know. Last year's a little bit different when you have the whole class starting as Zoom. Everybody's kind of doing the same thing, and the teacher's able to focus on that and explain, okay, this is what we do when we want to raise our hand. This is how you raise your hand. You can't just talk, and so on. So it's a challenge, especially in kindergarten. The next 2 are from parents. They like having the Zoom option, which is no surprise there. And I think that pretty much sums up the theme as we look at the thoughts. Parents like having the Zoom in general, although there's a lot of parents that commented when I dug down a little bit deeper into the responses. Parents understand too that it's hard on teachers, and said that those thoughts didn't get rated higher. So if you look at the overall, parents generally really want Zoom. They really want us to continue on and keep kids, when they have to quarantine, engaged in school. Again, it's generally positive.
Jason, without positive COVID tests, has there been anyone who's tried to request Zoom just for sick or injury or?
Oh, yes, we get requests, weekly, principals, daily, about requesting for kids going on vacation or,
For vacation?
yeah.
So that's a, no- it's a blanket no when it's not COVID, yeah?
So when we let the, instead of teachers having to respond back to the parents, they let us know, we
Yeah.
let the parents know it's on.
So yes, we are getting requests for Zoom for, you know, other illnesses perhaps. But the thing to keep in mind with other illnesses is COVID's unique because we were keeping kids out for 10 days, even if they were close contact and healthy. And, or even if they had COVID, they're out for 10 days, even if they were starting to feel better. Illnesses in the past, strep throat, for example, you were out for a couple of days maybe until you got your medicine and started to feel better. As soon as you start to feel better, your fever's gone, you're back to school the next day. So maybe you're out for 5 days at the most, where this was much longer time staying out because of the nature of how this is spread and the nature of the disease. So that's why Zooming for COVID. And vacation was a hard no, because we're not trying to encourage people to do this. This is a lot of work for teachers, so trying to limit it as much as possible, but there's still a lot of kids. 2 weeks ago, there's 84 kids at the elementary school in Zoom on the list. Last week is down to 40 some at the elementary school. It's a lot. Middle school had 40 some last week. Again, parents generally want to keep this option.
Subs and Zoom don't mix.
Subs and Zoom don't mix. It is really, I don't know if that was a parent or a teacher, but it's really hard for a sub to come in one day. I know I had the experience subbing at the middle school, where I was subbing in for just one class period, 2 class periods, 1 class period, 2 class periods, 1 class. But how do I know when a sub walking into the room cold? I don't know who's supposed to be Zooming. I don't know how to set it up. I don't know where the link is. I would have to know how to go into Schoology, find that link, get that link out. I don't have the passwords. I don't have the teacher doesn't know it's me in the room. So she would have to, or he would have to give me the not the password, but have to make me a co-teacher. It's a lot, and that's just for 2 periods. And we have that a lot, especially at the middle school where we're cross-covering period by period by period. So if I've got a plan time, first and second period, the secretary every day is pushing out, who can cover first and second period? Anybody who has off, can we cover? So that's a challenge that is pretty intense. I understand it from the kids' standpoint too, staying at home. I had one at home who was in quarantine and was feeling pretty good most of the time. It was very frustrating trying to be on the other side too and Zoom in. So another feature of this system is that you have a side A and a side B, and this is just the staff member responses, which is interesting. So you had this group side A responded to these thoughts very highly, side B very low. So you can see where you have a divide. So there are some teachers, and I want to point this out too, there are teachers that generally, if you split this out, the middle school teachers are more in favor of Zoom and getting the kids started right away. Elementary teachers, not in favor at all, because it's a lot more work to get ready for elementary for those young kids, like the kindergarten example. I'd say K1-2 is pretty tough to get kids onto Zoom, help them understand, they just need more guidance one-on-one versus middle school kids who are more used to it. Our system with Schoology is already kind of set up to be a little bit more, so kids can be a little more independent, but even that is a challenge.
I mean, do we feel like the district can support two different standards? Like it's at elementary schools say no more zooming, to the middle schools will keep zooming? Are you comfortable with that, or do you feel like we need to have a unified district policy?
That's a good question.
I get it.
What do you feel about that as a parent?
I mean, well, we know what how the parents feel, right? Like overall, I was looking through it when I was just doing it, you know. But I think parents aren't thinking about whatever. You can't make them think what you're not thinking about. But like your kid, when they're there, is missing out because the teacher is so distracted by zooming, you know. Yeah, I mean, I understand why parents want it, but I don't think they're seeing the big picture, that like, all the other days that your kid didn't miss, the teacher is distracted. But yeah, but I mean, parents see it the way they see it, you can't, that's the whole point of this kind of questionnaire.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and it's taking a lot of energy in our system overall, not just teachers in the classroom, it's administrators and nurses and secretaries, because everybody's tracking who should be zooming in and who should not be zooming in and how many days.
Who else is split, has kids, or has had kids in both? Yeah, because it wouldn't bother me, it would make sense to me, like I'm not split anymore, now I'm high school, junior high. But I feel like that wouldn't bother me. Like I would understand that middle school kids are more independent, the teaching style is different.
My concern is more along with the expectation of Zooming while in quarantine. I would want to make sure that there is not an expectation that a child is required to be on Zoom. Because with kids that are dealing with severe ADHD, sensory processing disorders, there is absolutely no way that they're going to benefit from being forced to sit in front of an iPad.
Well, we're not doing that now, so I don't think we would double down. I think we're hoping to kind of ease up on it. I don't think that's the direction.
No, I know, but that's where my concern would be. It's not necessarily like, elementary school versus junior high, because that's something that's across the board. So I don't think that, just, you know, as a parent with kids in both schools, that my concern would not be eliminating one and keeping the other.
Yeah, we've thought about that too, and so there's, some kids just don't do well on Zoom, some kids do great, better in Zoom than they do at home, and teachers recognize that too. But in a classroom, if you've got 3 kids who are out and can do well on Zoom, and 3 kids who are out who don't do so well on Zoom, or aren't there, you still have to help those kids make it up when they get back to school, make up that lost learning. So you can kind of feel, reading through these, both on the parents and the teachers, wrestling a little bit with. For the teachers, we don't like Zoom. It's a lot of energy, but we also recognize that sometimes we'd rather have the kids keep up more at home, and then when they get back, there's not so much makeup time that I have to spend with that child to get them caught up. But it's so much energy, is it worth it when they're on Zoom? And could I focus better if we just didn't have the option? So I think they'll get, and they get, everybody I think understands it, it's just a matter of how do we make it work. It's tough, it's really hard, really hard. Especially at the younger ages, for sure. I recognize that.
So are you looking to,
I'm not looking for anything from the board, I'm just informing you this is superintendent report time, so just putting this up here to, first of all, to help explain the thought exchange, and I'll send out the results to parents. But just as a heads up of what we're wrestling with, and if you have feedback, great, but if you don't, I'm not looking for any direction from the board. We'll continue wrestling that with through this with the staff. This is primarily a staff issue at this point.
So I guess my question would just be, would it be, I mean, overall, would the benefit for staff, you know, with cases going down, I mean, would it be a good time to break from it, or would you like to ride the year out and see what happens?
I think, I don't know the answer to that question, but I would like to get away from Zoom as quickly as possible. In general. Maybe when we get more kids back in the swing, and we're not seeing as many kids out as much, and that would be a better time to transition and say, no, we're done. Or we could go to a 10-day, if kids are out for 10 days, there's still circumstances where there's a 10-day quarantine. Those kids would be able to, because that's a very long time to be out of school. But for 5 days, is it worth it? I don't know. That's just where I'm at. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we know how many kids have had COVID in the school so far?
Total?
Yeah. I mean, what percentage, how close are we to getting to herd immunity?
Not close.
Any
You
polls?
need, they say with
70%.
with the R naught of the Omicron variant, you need like 97%. It's like, it's not possible, and it's not possible to get herd immunity anyway.
Yeah, I looked at that the other day and stopped counting, but it's not like 60% or anything.
It's not like 60, so, where are we at?
Not close, yeah.
Not close, okay.
If I had to throw a number out there, I'd say between 20 and 30,
Really?
maybe.
So, could we
Or-
potentially move to a Zoom upon special request if COVID positive, opposed to like, cause we just had COVID over Christmas break, and most of the time we were positive was during, you know, the recess from school. And then I called Nurse Kelly and talked to her, and she was like, okay, here's what it is, and then she kinda was like, you'll start Zoom on Wednesday. So, okay, like, I was just taking the direction, like, given the option, I mean, I would have probably opted for it just so they could be doing something, but, you know, then the kids go to specials, the kids go to lunch, you know, it's more like running around, and I get the benefit of it, especially for the middle schoolers, but if it's causing you guys this huge headache, is the benefit to the community, like, one, is it there, and two, is it even necessary anymore with how fast cases are falling and how many people in the district have had it, regardless of herd immunity or not, like, there's gonna be cases, but are they gonna be sporadic, and could they just, if they're positive and they want to Zoom, could they just send an email to Jake or Ben and request that?
Well, it's optional now, so it's kind of the same.
Does it count for, like, if you're counting their attendance days?
Yep.
It counts
It's
as
a
that they were
different, so we
sick?
had to create a different code in our attendance system to track kids when they're Zooming, so we have to track their attendance when they're Zooming as well. And that's a different attendance code, and they're counted here, present.
What if they're there in the morning for attendance, and then they have issues, or they're still there the whole day?
There all day? Jake is saying.
Yeah.
As long as there's an attendance. Mr. Walshire?
As part of our contact tracing, we do actually have a list of all of our positive cases, because it helps with it in identifying. So I actually have the number for at least at MES.
Oh, yeah, good.
Anyway,
What do you got?
84 cases this year.
84?
So it's 10%.
This school year or this calendar year?
School year.
Okay.
How many
That's
since,
12%.
I don't know, Omicron that came out recently?
That's the exact date.
I don't know, let's say December, since December,
Who knows? No, I think it was earlier than that.
since December.
I think it was here in
So
November.
if we're going off from since December. 47.
So half.
so 47 is only 5% of our school population.
You gotta imagine it's much higher than that though.
Yeah, that's what we know of.
Yeah.
So, the other part of this, system that I like is you can take, okay, all the people inside B rated those thoughts high and these thoughts low and vice versa. But then you say, okay, these same people had this in common, so you can kind of start the conversation here. And that's, well, it's better than nothing.
That's what they do.
That's what we can agree on. So I think we'll continue for the time being, but given the opportunity to phase out, especially at the younger grade levels, I think we will look to do that. Okay?
I mean, just a quick straw poll, I mean, would anybody be opposed if they had come with something to plan and phase out in like X amount of days or these circumstances? Would anyone be adamantly opposed to that?
It depends on the procedures. Like, my little guy, we had COVID at the beginning of January. My little guy, he missed, 2-3 days right away, and then he does his stuff. And then again, today he was told, don't come in because you're close contact. So he's gonna miss today again, and hopefully he'll be able to come in tomorrow and get tests to return. But to continue to say, okay, you're out for this day. Okay, that's another, 3 days of learning that just disappears. And those can add up over time, So that does need to be thought about.
It should be double jeopardy though, if you tested positive, if you don't have to, right, after the close contact? Yeah. So. Alright.
But there's, every situation is so different, but yeah, there's some kids who are out a lot and in and out,
Just let him in. He's negative, let him in, but we gotta get him tested again, so.
Maybe you do test this day?
That we're gonna do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna come in tomorrow. So.
Alright.
That's all I have to say about that. So I wanted to give a little bit of report on our goals for this year and let the board know we haven't had any formal presentations about progress on what we're doing, and other than seems like a lot of conversation about COVID. But I do want you to know that we are progressing forward with our two big initiatives this year, that being becoming a Restorative Practices district and our work with implementing the PLC, Professional Learning Communities process. And all of that ties back into our last strategic planning, or our current strategic plan, where we're talking about these are the beliefs of our district, this is what we value as a district, and our critical issues are staffing, probably even more critical than we thought they were 2 years ago when we started this process, but staffing and building the staff that we have and continuous improvement. So both of those professional learning communities is the tool that we are planning to use to build our staff, to have continuous, a philosophy and a mindset of continuous improvement, and we are making progress with that. So we have a professional learning communities oversight board, and we had a great conversation, I think it was last week or the week before when we met, about where we're at this year. So our big goals this year were self-awareness, empathy, and a shared vision to get us started. And we also wanted people to understand why we're doing professional learning communities, why are we putting in this effort, and what are professional learning communities. So all of this, and we have rubrics in place. We've done some surveys that will do, compare what we know at the beginning and what people's comfort level are towards the end of the year, and be able to share that out with you. But I want you to know that we're still moving forward with different initiatives and education. Things are happening lots of good things are happening at the district, not just survival, not just COVID, which is a great testament to our leaders at our buildings and our staff. They're doing a great job of keeping things going, and they're hungry to improve learning and hungry to, of course, get back to normal and get rid of all the COVID distraction. But in the meantime, we're plugging forward. So good news. There's good news on that front. Professional learning communities is like a team of teachers. We're working together, looking at data, saying how can we improve? This is what we have. This is where kids are at. How can we move them forward? What's the best way to move them forward and collaboratively talk about that? So they're asking the 4 questions. What is it that we want students to know? So we spent a lot of time this year on that question. What do we want students to know or be able to do? What do we want students to know or be able to do by quarter 1? What do we want them to know by quarter 2? So on at the end of the year. So we've been working with the Regional Office of Education at the elementary school to set our core grade level standards of what do we want kids to know and be able to do. Ben, is that math and reading has been your focus in those areas?
Correct.
So they met with teachers how many times already?
Well, throughout the course of 4 months, each team kind of split up duties between math and ELA. So the ELA rep met with teams 6 times, and the math person met with them 6 times.
So we're moving forward, trying to clearly define what is it we want our kids to know. So that's question number 1 in a PLC. Question number 2 is how do we know if they know it? So we want them to know X. How do we know when they get there, when they know it? And so one of our next steps is going to be developing common assessments that will help us understand our kids meeting the standards that we set out. And then the third question is, what do we do if kids don't know it? How do we give them either more support, or what do we do? How do we change our instruction if they're not learning what our expectations are? So that's question number 3. Question number 4 is, what happens if they already know it? How do we move beyond that and extend their learning past that? So those are basic questions of the PLC model, and that is teams sitting together asking those 4 questions and focusing on student learning, and it could be student behaviors, it could be a variety of things. We're making progress there. The reason why we did self-awareness, empathy, and shared vision is because in order to work with teams and to increase their vulnerability, we have to have some self-awareness. How am I perceived in a group? What do I bring to the team? Things like that. Empathy is understanding other people's point of view. So you have to understand yourself, you have to understand empathy. So we're doing different activities than we have throughout the year related to those. And then shared vision. What do we want students to know and be able to do, and how do we want to interact as a school and have those conversations? So those conversations are happening. It's been tough. A lot of it has been focused on how do we get through the day. Sometimes we've pulled back. Definitely our pace is not as fast as we typically might want to, or some people might want to, and that's quite all right. We haven't presented formally to the board because as an administrative team we're focused more on supporting our staff and contact tracing, quite frankly, and communicating with parents about COVID, and it's been busy. So I just wanted to give the board an update, and hopefully we'll have more formal presentations at some point here and give you a better picture of what we've done this year and where we expect to go in the future. The other half of that is restorative practices, and we've hired a consultant that we've been working with for a couple of years on restorative practices, which is timely because working as a community and restoring relationships and building relationships with kids and staff is so huge right now. To be able to support each other in this time and to get us back, building back with whatever the future looks like. Right now, everything is so uncertain. We really need that skill set, so that's been timely as well. The last announcement that I have is that there's a student from Antioch High School who's doing an advanced placement research class, and he would like to use students at Milburn as some of his subjects. So it has to do with recess and recess choices and personality. So I will forward the information that I got today to you. You can look at that at your own leisure and ask any questions that you want. But I have to make sure that our student data is protected and that he's talking about if he's collecting information about kids that's private, and he's got a very nice outline of how he will keep all of that safe. So I've gone ahead and approved that project. Parents will have to sign permission, of course, because you have to be aware of what data is being collected. But that'll be, I think he's focusing on 6th and 7th graders. So if you have a 6th and 7th grader and want to participate in that,
We
you're
don't
welcome
feed
to.
into Antioch though, how come they're coming here?
Probably because you can't do research on your own school. Like, when I did my doctoral research, I couldn't do it on Milburn because I had a connection to it. You've got to have a separation as a researcher.
Oh, and there's one middle school.
And there's maybe,
That's it.
yeah, if he went to
Okay.
AUGS, he wouldn't be able to do AUGS
Yeah, that makes sense.
because you might skew the
Data,
data somehow.
cute.
Yep. Good question. Okay, I will forward that information out in my notes on Friday, and if you want, you can ask questions about that. I'm very excited about that. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Jason.
No problem.
All right, business office report, Dr. Johns?
I'll just hit the things we haven't talked about already. The roof repairs on the East Gym and surrounding area, that originally we were looking at that as doing that to replace the roof. We decided to go ahead and just do a temporary fix that we're hoping will give us about 5 more years. And that was completed, I believe, sometime in November. The bill was on the bill list today for payment, so that's what kind of triggered my memory that I should let you know that was done. The E-rate Emergency Connectivity Fund, we did get a decision letter saying that we can request reimbursement of $239,915 for the iPads we purchased this year. It doesn't cover any of the cases or keyboards or anything like that, only the device, to the exact penny of what we paid for them. So I'm going to have to work with Apple as far as, because it's almost going to be like we're going to be prepaying principal on the lease. So that should be fun to have that discussion with them. Because I have to show a paid receipt, I have to show where I've written a check to Apple to pay for them within so many days after I get reimbursement from Apple. So we'll work that out. Nothing simple. We did have a water issue at the middle school. The water has been turned off. There was an exterior spigot that I'm assuming froze, and we had water that was flowing underneath the snowbank. And our bill that we just received was $11,000, and typically those bills for a 2-month period are between $1,000 and $1,500. So we knew we had a problem. We're also going to go around and check and see if there's anything else as far as toilets or anything else that might be leaking as well. That is a huge amount of money. But it makes it a little more difficult because we only get billed every 2 months. And I've heard horror stories of individuals who've had like a toilet that's leaking or whatever, and they get this huge bill. Well, our bills are just much higher because our base bill is higher. So, yeah, not good. Just to give you an idea on property tax revenue, we're right in the target zone. So far, this year we've received 97.82% of the levy, and last year at this time we'd received 97.29%, so we're pretty much on target there. There is a new process that we have to follow. We have to contact each of our vendors and determine whether, have them certify whether or not they're a minority, women, or veteran-owned business. And then we have to post all that on our website. So that's gonna be another fairly large project to contact people and then follow up and pull all that stuff together in a database to publish it. We did get our phone circuit switched, although there's one more supposedly 5-minute call. I'm not quite sure why we need it, but to verify that the main number here at the elementary was ported, which it works, but AT&T's telling us we need somebody from the school district to be on the phone for 5 minutes with them to verify it. And then I did give you just a quick audit update of the things that were discussed in the exit interview. Nothing major, no findings, no management letter comments or anything like that. So overall, should be a very positive report that we get on February 14th. Demand response program is another thing that we do, and typically we've only done that in the summer. It is going to start being both a summer and a winter program. But basically we shut down, we power down our air conditioners and electrical usage for an hour in the summer once a year. Now, if in fact there was a brownout or something, or they were anticipating something, we do have the capability of being able to, and actually we have 2 different levels. One's kind of a minor reduction, another one's fairly major, where we actually turn off the chillers. But just from shutting our power down for about an hour, the first payment that we got, that was from last summer, was $6,885.26, and then we'll get that same payment again. So we'll get a total of $13,770 for powering down our electrical usage for an hour in July, this past July. So it's not a huge amount of money, but it is a chunk of money that, this year I could pay our water bill, but other years we could use it for other things. We did get the cash for the facility maintenance grant, and at the end of the report, I kind of gave you a drawing of what the architect put together for us as far as the color scheme. And I meant to bring the tiles down, but I forgot to do that, so I can do that for the next meeting. But basically we're looking at blues and reds and gray. Gray would be the base color. In the hallways you would have blue circles and red stripes. In the classrooms you would have a red circle and a blue stripe. Currently in this section of the building, we have kind of blue and red tiles scattered throughout the room, but because of the placement of the furniture, you can't even see half of them because furniture's on top of it. The architect was thinking by it being, at one end of the room, that it probably would stand out because you're probably not going to cover all of it up. Now this would be a 5mm thick luxury vinyl tile, which is the same thickness that we have in the STEM lab. What we did in the 61 edition and the other areas last summer was a 2.5mm, and it didn't turn out quite as nicely as I had hoped it would. I mean, it's still nice and it's clean and it looks nice, but it doesn't have that same feel that you get when you walk on the thicker vinyl tile. And then the areas that are in yellow are the walk-off carpet, which we got at the entrance by the business office and then by Red Apple. So we would also have that at the entrance by the East Gym, that entire entry area by the office, as well as going all the way up to where the east and west hallway is. right at the office, about where Lenita sits is about where that would end. It would end like right after her, where she's at, in the hallway there. And then it also would be in the receiving area hallway, because we do have students coming in and out of there for emergency drills and those kinds of things. And then at the cafeteria, it would be in that glassed-in section, as well as the hallway where we have like a carpet rolled over the tile. It would just be a walk-off carpet rather than having another rug on top of it that could be a tripping hazard. And then would also go all the way over to the entrance, almost to by the gymnasium, kind of where the coat racks end, or the coat hooks end there. Any questions or comments? And they're actually finalizing the pricing for us, so once I get that, then we'll kind of know if this entire grouping is going to be a go as far as what we're able to do. But this way, everything in that entire area is done all at the same time, and then in the future, you can move on and do additional areas.
Well, thank you, Dr. Johns. Anything else?
No.
Any questions for Dr. Johns?
I have a question for both of you. Past December, we talked about receiving funds from the state regarding the building.
Right, that's the $50,000.
No,
okay.
The one that was supposed to.
The tax one?
Yeah, the tax one.
Oh,
What is the status?
I have not heard anything on that, have you?
Of that.
Probably in the next couple of weeks we'll find out.
Yeah, I know that there's a February date that you have to, like the end of February, beginning of March, when you have to do your resolution.
Yeah, then we'd have to accept it. I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
What was that called, property tax?
Property tax relief grant? Yeah, that would be wonderful.
I thought about that the other day, but now I've forgotten it. Well, the application deadline was January 10th, so that's only 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So we'll let you know.
Okay.
Whenever we hear something.
Well said that. All right, moving on to item 11, board reports. Anybody have anything? Brendan, anything?
No, nothing.
Okay. All right. So we do have a closed session this evening. So I need a motion before I recite the Open Meetings Act exceptions, or just go right into it?
No, you read those, so you read, I need a motion
Okay.
to go into closed session for the purpose of, and then you get to read all of that. And then someone says, so moved.
All right, perfect. All right. So I need a motion to adjourn to closed session for item exception 1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in the park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act, 5 ILCS 120/2C1, as well as exception 2, collective negotiating matters between the public body, its employees, their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more class of employees, citing 5 ILCS 120/2C2.
So moved.
Thanks so much for that, John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sean, all right. Case adjourned to closed session.
Nope, yeah, vote.
Roll
Yeah,
call?
Roll call.
We need a roll call for that.
Ms. Foss,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Federini,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts.
Yes.
The board enters into closed session.
Okay, so we will not, I will stop the streaming, of course, and we will not pick it up again, because the only thing we'll come out of closed session to do is adjourn the meeting, so our public, portion of this meeting is over. Just wanted to announce that, make that clear, so I will stop sharing and